Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports live from our state-of-the-art Pontchartrain production studios. I got to do it right. Chamber of Commerce type day here in the city of New Orleans. You got to love that. Beautiful day here in Old New Orleans, and of course we're going to break it down for you this afternoon. All the home teams: Saints, LSU, Tulane. Talk Pelicans. We'll talk about Southeastern going to the second round of the playoffs, and to break it down, one of the best we have in the city. Award-winning journalist Les East, accomplished author. He joins us on the program from CrescentCitySports.com and so much more. Les, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. Good to be here.
Good to have you as always. A lot to talk about. Before we do, tell us a little bit about CrescentCitySports.com, any other publications you're stringing for, and also, again, your book, because it is Christmas. A lot of folks are going to be looking for stocking stuffers. Great stocking stuffer.
It is a great stocking stuffer, if I may say so myself. The book is called Donkeys, Elephants, and Giraffes. It's a novel about politics and the media, but it has some sports references in it. It's available at all the major online sites, Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble, etc. So hopefully folks will check it out. As for the day-to-day stuff, CrescentCitySports.com, of course, one of our big things is preps. And prep football playoffs are winding down, so it's a big time for us with the select finals, a couple of select finals coming up, and non-select semifinals this weekend. It's all coming to a conclusion. And so we've had quite a bit of prep football coverage there, in addition to what we always do with the Saints and the Pelicans and LSU and Tulane and everybody else. And Saturday Down South, I've had several stories in the last week dealing with LSU with the end of the regular season, Coach O's last game, and of course now the hiring of Brian Kelly. So a lot of stuff been cranked out there in the last few days.
And of course also on 106.1 with, again, the prep roundup, right?
Correct. And tomorrow night we will have, for the third straight week, a game within the show.
Within the show, right.
And we'll have the Car Cougars as they play a semifinal match and try to make yet another state championship appearance in Class 4A. So we look forward to that, and I'll be in the studio with Matt Sims, and Ken Trahan will be calling the game for the Car Cougars.
Well, the Saints take on the Dallas Cowboys tonight, and want to show the audience what we have to deal with here at WLAE-TV. Can we get our director, William Hill, out here for a moment, just for a second, just to show, well, again, us New Orleanians have to deal with on a day in, day out basis. This is what we got to deal with right here. Dallas Cowboy fan. Can you believe this? Unbelievable. Get out of here. Out.
How did they let him in the building
I don't know
like
how.
that?
I came to work today. The first thing I see is a Dallas Cowboy star. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Oh, thank God he's the best director in the business.
Yeah, he's good enough that we'll let that slide.
We'll let that slide for today, no doubt about it. At the Dome tonight, I'm not sure. Buffalo 31, Saints 6. I thought it was the worst offensive performance of the Peyton era. I mean, again, they couldn't get out their own way. Like I said this several weeks ago when Trevor Siemian took over. There's a reason why he was fourth string, why he was on the practice squad. He stabilized things for a week or two, but there's a book on him in the NFL. And then you add the lack of talent on the offensive side of the ball and all the deep injuries they've had. Look, it was going to be very, very difficult for him to be able to generate wins for this team. And unfortunately, again, the injury to Taysom Hill has really set this team back between the concussion and of course, the foot injury. That probably has sidelined him a little longer than maybe, again, it was anticipated by the coaching staff. But nevertheless, there is a change in the guard tonight with, again, with Taysom moving in to the quarterback position. But I got to be honest with you. I looked at that starting lineup last week, okay, against Buffalo. It looked like the fourth game of a preseason. I mean, literally, again, I had no expectations that the Saints could upset the Buffalo Bills when you saw who was playing.
Yeah, it was pretty much a lost cause from the beginning. Buffalo's a really good team, even though they had struggled a little bit going into that game. But the talent disparity between the two with the Saints' injuries was just too much for them to overcome. And, you know, since it did look like a preseason game, I kept waiting for Tony Jones Jr. or Marquez Callaway to have a big game because, you know, that they made their reputations in preseason games. But this is a different animal. And, you know, it really hurts them that they couldn't win one or both of the Atlanta and Tennessee games when Trevor Siemian played well enough for them to be right there, 61 seconds away from beating the Falcons, couldn't do it. 2-point conversion to tie the Titans. If they had made their extra points, they wouldn't have had to go for two. Those two really hurt because he could have gotten them 1 or 2 wins early on, and now it's kind of like you said, there's a book on them. They've kind of figured it out. And so now they have to go to Taysom Hill. I think had Taysom been healthy, he might have started against Buffalo or at least gone in at some point to try and give him a lift, but Peyton didn't feel like that would have been fair to him with the foot injury. So we'll see how limited he is tonight by the injury. But right now, since Alvin Kamara is not going to play, Taysom's the only potential spark for this team. I mean, he can go in there. He's a dynamic player. He has his limitations, but he's a dynamic player. He can move around. He can, you know, give a lift to the running game as well as the passing game and just the emotions of the crowd and the team. So he's their one hope for jump-starting this team, and it needs to get jump-started as quickly as possible. So he's in the spotlight tonight because he can make a huge difference, and if he doesn't, things are going to get ugly.
Well, again, it's already ugly in terms of, again, the injury list for tonight. Kamara's out, Armstead and Ramczyk are out, and that proved to be disastrous last week. On the defensive side, Davenport continues to be, again, injury-plagued. Passanio has been a really good player for this team this year. He's out again, and then Caden Ellis is also out. So, again, it's not as bad as it was last week, but still, again, a lot of key players out, especially, again, Kamara and the two starting tackles. It's really going to be hard to overcome that.
Yeah, it will be. Now, they do get Mark Ingram back
They do.
in addition to Taysom, so that helps. So you would hope that they could have some sort of running game outside of Taysom from Mark Ingram to keep the Cowboys off balance, to make things a little easier on Taysom in the passing game. But you're missing your two really, really good tackles, and you've already lost your left guard. So that's going to make it hard. Cowboys have not played well of late. They've lost 3 or 4, but they do have a very talented team. They have a good defense.
Yes, they do.
Didn't play great on Thanksgiving, but it is a good defense. So it's going to be hard to run the ball. But I think Sean Payton's going to have a creative game plan to try and utilize Ingram and utilize Hill in the running game as much as he can with the foot, and then also try and get the passing game going.
I agree. I posted this on social media before the Bills game because again, last Tuesday was my last day. We took a little mini vacation for Thanksgiving. Taysom brings a different dynamic to the team in terms of the ability to touch the ball on every play, his ability to be able to scramble. If he's going to be a two-read and run guy, at that point the defense has to be able to account for him on every single play. That means you're probably not going to get straight man-to-man defense, which has been proven again to be the kryptonite for the less than NFL type receivers that they have on this team. That'll give you more zone coverage. They've been able to beat zone coverage. They haven't been able to get the separation against man-to-man, so we could see that. What I hope we don't see tonight is Taysom channeling his inner breeze, where he tries to stay in the pocket, go through his progressions. That's not the quarterback. That's not who he's going to be. If he's going to be a starting quarterback for this team next year, and the contract, we'll talk about that in a little while, he's going to have to be a guy that's a two-read and run guy. And especially tonight, he's got to be, again, willing to be able to take off and make the defense account for him on every single play in terms of his running ability, as much as his ability to be able to throw the ball downfield. Absolutely.
And in his case, with his ability to run, and Malcolm Jenkins talked about this with when they played Philadelphia because of the running ability of Hurts. It's 11 on 11 instead of 11 on 10.
Right.
Normally when you're running the ball, the quarterback's not a factor. Taysom makes it even, just like Jalen Hurts does, even though he's somewhat different style.
Point.
So it gives you better numbers. It's simple math. It gives you better numbers in the running game. But you're right. I think that Taysom, he needs to just be a wild card. He needs to be frenetic.
Yes.
As much as he can be with the foot. I don't know how bad the foot is, but that's a difficult injury to play with.
Flip on the old films of John Fourcade in the Saints uniform.
Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, that's what he's got to be.
Yeah, and play this game like it's win and get in for the playoffs. It's not, but if you don't win it, it's going to get really hard to get in. So, forget about long term, forget about next season, forget about the stretch run. He's got to do everything he can to jumble up the Cowboys' defense so the Saints can score enough points to end this losing streak and move on from this really tough stretch they've had for the last month.
Now, you've seen this team, again, throughout training camp. There was always a thought process that there would be one offense for Jameis Winston, who, again, Trevor Siemian, if he came in an emergency to back up. But then the script would flip in terms of the type of offense. It would become more of maybe a Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts type offense. Do you believe that happens tonight?
To some degree. I don't know that the offense changes. The game plan, the sets of plays will be somewhat different. There are plays that Taysom can run that Trevor Siemian obviously can't run.
Yes.
And that Jameis Winston really couldn't run that well. So, yeah, the package will be different. It won't be a totally transformative offense, but the package will be different to better suit Taysom's ability to run. And, Trevor Siemian has really done everything he could to help this team, and he played well at times. But, boy, that's first sack against Buffalo on Thursday night.
Yes.
It looked like Teron Armstead got beat, but he really didn't get beat that bad. He ran him away from the pocket, and it was there for Siemian to step up like Drew Brees would have done and make the pass, and he just doesn't have the instinct to do that. And it winds up being a sack, big play. Looks like it's the tackle's fault. It's not the tackle's fault. And Taysom sometimes holds the ball too long himself in the pocket, but on balance, he's going to be able to handle the pass rush better, to move around in the pocket, to make stuff happen. And so some of that will be scripted with the plays they have coming in, and some of that will just be letting Taysom be Taysom.
To your point, he cannot hold the ball. When he was at his best was when he was scrambling, using his legs. We know he can throw the ball. Okay, the question when he came in was, can he be a pocket passer? I think he's proven he can be. But I think at this point, with this team, with the injuries we're seeing right now, he needs to be a guy that's going to be an elusive quarterback that's going to get out of the pocket. If he's going to sit there and be able to step up in the pocket and try to deliver the ball, I think that's the wrong recipe for success for this team. This offensive line has had to be able to transition from Drew Brees, who got the ball out very, very quickly, who again you knew where he was going to be in the pocket because he was stepping up, to Jameis Winston, who was again a guy that did not step up in the pocket, with his arm so strong that he would let it go. And then he started to really move around because he realized that receivers weren't getting open, to Trevor Siemian, who's been a statue back there. And again, even Brees making the comment that he's doing a 10-step drop, which again gives receivers a little bit more time to get open, but it hurts the offensive line in terms of holding their blocks. So now another dimension comes in this week with Taysom Hill, and the hope is that he will help the offensive line with his mobility rather than hinder the offensive line by trying to be a pocket passer.
Yeah, I agree. And to that point, and this goes with Sean Payton's nature, there's a temptation when you're outmanned to try and shorten the game.
Right.
And run the play clock down, take your time.
Right. Brees was a master at it.
Yeah, try and even the playing field a little bit. But I don't think that's the way to play this game with Taysom coming back. I think you go tempo.
You want up tempo.
You want to go up tempo. I think you try and run the ball with Mark Ingram, but also you get in and out of the huddle fast. You get to the line of scrimmage. You let Taysom take off.
Right.
You speed it up. Try and get a rhythm for an offense that has been stuck in quicksand for a month now. And I think the best way to do that is to go tempo and to speed things up. It may allow the Cowboys offense to run more plays than they would otherwise, but I think it's the best way for the Saints offense to be more productive. And the Cowboys have plenty of problems of their own coming into this game.
Of course, yes, they do. COVID-19 outbreak. Their head coach McCarthy will not be here tonight. Dan Quinn, the former Atlanta coach, their defensive coordinator, comes in and takes over there. The offensive line coach is out. The assistant to the offensive line coach is out. Steele, their right tackle, is out. Amari Cooper is limited, but in talking to the Dallas Cowboy fan in the back, he supposedly is having trouble breathing because of COVID-19. So my guess is can't breathe, can't run, right? So more than likely he's not in the game. But they are having issues, but they have playmakers all over that offense. I mean, just from from the quarterback to Elliott in the backfield to again a plethora of wide receivers. This is why I'm concerned about the second and third level of the Saints defense. Look, they are hurt up front, and they have to manufacture a pass rush. But again, the Saints have to be able to lock down these wide receivers and pass catchers of the Dallas Cowboys, and that's easier said than done.
And the Cowboys do get CeeDee Lamb back, who missed the last game because of a concussion. Even if they don't have Cooper, they'll be better off than they were last week. But Ezekiel Elliott's been playing with a knee injury. His rushing yardage has gone down each of the last 4 or 5 games. He didn't even get the most touches on Thanksgiving. That went to Pollard.
Right.
So it doesn't look like
he's not a bad back.
No, he's not a bad back, but he's not Ezekiel Elliott. And so the running game, and they're losing their right tackle and the 2 offensive line coaches, and the Saints showed in Carolina how delicate a situation that can be when you lose those people in COVID. So, and the Saints defend the run well, even with the injuries up front. So I think the Cowboys are going to have a hard time running the ball, even though that's normally their bread and butter, and they have a great offensive line. They're missing the tackle, and the line hasn't played great of late. So I think the Saints have to be able to contain the run, which I think is reasonable under the circumstances, and make Dak Prescott have to beat him with the passing game. And he might be able to do it, but I think that's where the Saints have the best chance of slowing them down. You're right, they're going to have to manufacture a pass rush, which means blitzing probably more than Dennis Allen would prefer. And there's a chance of exposing some of the weaknesses on the back end. But the defense played well against Buffalo up to a point. They had a nice pass rush in the first half, and eventually they just cracked because the offense couldn't do anything. If the offense does play better with Taysom as we expect, then I think the defense might be able to hold up deeper into the game and pressure Dak Prescott, especially if they're able to eliminate the running game.
Well, that's one of the keys, in my opinion, the ability to be able to contain Dak if he decides to be able to take off and run. He is an athletic quarterback. The Saints have faced through the last 2 games with Philadelphia and Buffalo, 2 guys that can get out and run. Dak has not run as much as he did in the past because of his injuries, but again, he has the ability to run. And let me tell you something: the dude can play. Okay, he can. He is accurate. He has gotten better with his mechanics. He understands the offense there. He can spread the ball around. He is a weapon for this team.
He is. He's a very good player, and there's a reason why they gave him a big contract, even with the injury. I don't know how much he's going to be able to run. I think he's going to be reluctant to run.
Right.
This struck me in one of the assignments I had to do this week had to do with a betting preview of this game.
Yes.
So I had to look at all these prop bets, which I don't normally look at. I think the over-under on his rushing yards is 7.
Wow.
So the smart guys in Vegas don't think he's going to be running a whole lot. So
but the Saints have problems containing mobile quarterbacks.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Normally you would try and spy him.
Right.
I don't know if you need to do that with the injuries and with the dangerous guys they have elsewhere on the offense. So they may switch to that if he burns them early with some runs. But I think if they can turn this into a game where the Dallas offense is mostly Prescott throwing from the pocket, I think that gives them their best chance to win. It doesn't.
But they have to pressure him.
Absolutely.
They cannot let him sit back there and just pick him apart. They are too good at the skill positions to allow that to happen. They are going to get separation.
Oh yeah, no doubt that that's going to be the challenge. You know, Dallas is the better team. They have more talent up and down the roster, and that's been. And I think the Saints are missing more key people than even the Cowboys are. But the COVID disruption, the desperation that the Saints have, I just think that the Saints are going to play an inspired game, and they're going to get after Prescott, and I think it's going to be a tough, hard-fought, low-scoring game between the two defenses.
Low scoring. Okay, good deal. All right. Deontay Harris, DUI suspension, pending an appeal. That could happen. This could be his last game. But matter of fact, I'm anticipating this is his last game for the next 3 games.
Yeah.
Because again, the NFL moves very, very swiftly on the suspensions.
Yeah. And especially on appeals,
right?
Because those are usually rubber stamps.
Exactly.
So that would be the expectation, is that he'll be gone for 3 games after this.
3 games after this.
And so they need to, and maybe Kamara's back next week.
Right.
And, this may evolve into a better situation. But he's their most dynamic offensive player right now. They have to get him involved as much as they can. And I think his ability to not only catch passes but also be used in the running game, along with Taysom's ability to just kind of run around and mess things up, I think gives them the best option for explosive plays. Now, the key for Sean Payton, and he's really good at this, is finding a way to blend the running of Mark Ingram in a more traditional sense with all this wild card stuff with Taysom and Deontay Harris. It's going to make for a creative game plan, and it's going to be difficult to do with a patchwork offensive line.
That's the thing.
But that's the challenge they have, and that's what Sean Payton is best at, and we'll see what he comes up with.
Well, and also it lends to the strength of Taysom Hill if he is willing to run the football. Because, again, yes, it's a patchwork offensive line, but, again, if he is, I'm in 1, 2 reads, go at that point. At that point, the rush will slow down. They're going to have to account for him running the football. So it'll be interesting to see, again, how that plays out. Another big halftime honoring of, again, a great Saint on tonight. Sam Mills goes into the Saints Ring of Honor. You and I have discussed this in the past, long overdue. this will be an opportunity, especially with it looking like he has a very good shot of going into the NFL Hall of Fame this year. He's one of the finalists now. So again, we'll see how that plays out. We've talked about the Ring of Fame, and the last time you were here, the Ring of Honor and all that. One other thing I want to mention is, I know there's a problem with numbers out there. But when I see Jalen Holmes in 57, it irks me. Nobody should be wearing, with all Taysom, nobody should be wearing 7. I think if you're in the NFL Hall of Fame, no one should be wearing those numbers for the Saints. So 77, 7, 57, eventually 9, possibly 51, and of course 8 because Archie is who he is. Those numbers should not be worn by another player.
I agree. And at one point, 81, I think, was off the books.
81 and 31. That was Jimmy Taylor and Doug Atkins.
Yeah.
They're back in the mix now. Yeah. Those are officially retired jerseys from the Saints, but then they've unretired those to be able to be utilized. Yeah. But again, that was John Meekum in a knee-jerk reaction in the early part of the Saints. Those guys were Hall of Famers with the Packers and the Bears, not with the Saints. These guys are legitimate NFL Hall of Famers from the Saints.
Yeah. You have to put the standard very, very high because it's so limited on the number of numbers that you have, and 53-man roster and practice squad and all of this. So you can't just say, "Oh, he was a good player. Nobody gets to wear that."
That's what the Ring of Honor is for, though.
Right.
Okay, you can put a guy on the Ring of Honor, but not necessarily retire his jersey.
Right. But there are a few jerseys, and number 9's going to be one of them.
It's going to be one of them.
Number 8 has to be one of them.
That's right.
And 57 and 7 and 77.
Right. If you're in the NFL Hall of Fame, your jersey should not be worn by another player. We're not talking about a long parade list of Saints Hall of Famers in the NFL Hall of Fame. Okay, you're talking about a limited amount of players. Now, maybe down the line because of the Super Bowl, you may see more, but that is just the way it is at that point. Yeah. Okay? But again, this has been a real oversight by this ownership group. I thought that maybe Gail Benson, as really a caretaker for professional sports here in New Orleans, would again look at the Pistol Pete Maravin situation with that jersey going back up to the Smoothie King Center. Also, again, not allowing those jersey numbers to be utilized. If you're in the NFL Hall of Fame or if you're Archie Manning, those are off the table.
And maybe something with Drew's retirement and the formulation of how they're going to honor him. Obviously, with the Ring of Honor, he'll go to the Saints Hall of Fame, and the possibility of the jersey, maybe that will spur them to take another look at the jersey numbers overall and decide what to do with those. But I know we've said it before, but I'm going to say it again real quick.
Please do.
Jim Finks and Jim Mora have to go into the Ring of Honor as a tandem next season.
Next season. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah.
Needs to happen. Jim Mora is still alive. It's much like the Dale Brown situation up at LSU with Dale Brown Court. Again, this was necessary and needed to be done. He needed to be honored. And finally, again, the man's in his 80s. Do it while he's still alive.
Absolutely. And he comes down here regularly. He was in town for the Buffalo game and does work with WDSU. He's still involved with the Saints, loves the Saints. We've talked about it before, the two of them. When Mr. Benson identified Jim Finks and hired him, and Jim Finks went and hired Jim Mora from the USFL, it was the first time in the history of the franchise that the rest of the NFL said, hey, the Saints know what they're doing.
Right.
And it was what Finks and Mora went on to do that validated that perception. And I don't know what more I need to say.
No, and again, it needs to continue to be echoed by every media member out here. The fans need to step up. Everyone has a voice now with social media. Okay, everyone has a voice with your Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. Everybody needs to get on board with this. Again, these individuals need to be honored. And honestly, maybe it sticks in my craw because I'm old school. But for me, if I'm Ricky Jackson and I see number 8's number not being utilized, and I know nobody knows he's going to wear number 9 again, and I'm 57 and I see 57 running around there, I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, I'm in the NFL Hall of Fame. Why is someone wearing my number?
Yeah. Do you have a TikTok account? Maybe you could use your TikTok.
Might do that. Might open up a TikTok account just for that.
Maybe if Ricky walked into the Saints offices wearing his NFL Hall of Fame jacket,
it might wake him up
and said, "Why is somebody wearing number 57?" Maybe the visual would help. Or maybe he could do that on TikTok.
Maybe we'll invite him on the show and let him do it.
Absolutely.
There you go. One quick thing before we move on. Taysom Hill's new deal, 4-year extension, $40 million for 4 seasons, $22.5 million guaranteed. Could balloon to $95 million if he becomes the starting quarterback. They locked him up. Now look, $8.9 million in dead money was going to be due if ultimately by the end of the season they did not re-sign him. So there's some salary cap implications there as well. But nevertheless, they locked him up. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, he's 31 years old as of right now.
He is, but we've seen it the last 3 years as injuries have mounted in the season. Just how valuable a player he is, even though he's not the starting quarterback or hasn't been for an extended period of time. Even without the quarterback consideration, you know, when you start losing Alvin Kamara and Mike Thomas and these other people, he is so important in that offense, whether he's playing quarterback or whether he's doing all the other stuff. So he's a valuable player. I think it was, I don't know the numbers, you know, whether they overpaid or not, but I think they needed to redo that contract and get it done because he's an important player.
And this is a 6-game showcase for him to be able to prove he can be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. Period, the end. You got 6 games. Breeze is not coming out of retirement. Jameis is not coming off injured reserve. This is your team for the next 6 games.
Absolutely. And this is the opportunity. He had 4 games last year. Did quite well, I thought. Better than I expected. They went 3-1 while Drew was hurt. This is an opportunity where it's not like, well, just keep us afloat until Drew comes back. It's show us you're the guy.
Right.
This is his opportunity.
This is it, no doubt. Les East, award-winning journalist, is our guest from CrescentCitySports.com and Saturday Down South. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We take a quick break to hear from our underwriters. We come back, we turn to LSU. We talk Brian Kelly, Ed Ogeron. We'll also get into the Pels. We'll talk some Tulane. And we'll also, again, touch on Southeastern going into the second round of the playoffs. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Stick around.
BURKHARDT's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. BURKHARDT has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. BURKHARDT offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services BURKHARDT provides, visit acpromise.com. BURKHARDT's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Les East is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Okay, we turn our attention to LSU, 6-6 this season, 3-5 within the SEC. Miraculous win against Texas A&M, 27-24. I thought it was an incredible win for the kids who have had to endure so much during this season, and also for Ed Ogeron to walk away a winner again in his last game as LSU coach. Talk a little bit about the game quickly, and then just your thoughts on the legacy of Coach Ed Ogeron at LSU.
Yeah, the game reminded me a little bit of the 2015 finale against Texas A&M when they were the administration was discussing the firing of Les Miles because they lost 3 games in a row. And they went out and they beat Texas A&M. The players put him on their shoulders, carried him off. Fans chanted his name, and they said, and like 10 minutes after the game, they said, "You're still our coach."
Right.
And
which I think was misconstrued. I think the fans were thanking him for, again, his time at LSU, not necessarily chanting his name because they wanted him back.
Yeah. But it was the same thing in that everybody rallied behind the coach.
I agree.
And probably played beyond their capabilities to some degree. And it was an emotional night. It was a great way for it to end. I'm glad he's not coaching in the bowl game. His last game at LSU should be a victory on Saturday night in Tiger Stadium.
Yes.
That's who he is. That's who he will always be. So that was great. I think as far as the legacy, you know, it's going to be a complicated one because the high was as high as you can get, and the lows were pretty low at the end. But the thing is, first of all, he should always be remembered first and foremost for 2019.
I agree with that.
Joe Burrow, Joe Brady, national championship. No team in the history of college football has had a better season than that.
None.
Some of them maybe can match it.
Right.
Nobody has surpassed that. So that always has to be the first thing he's remembered for. You know, he's, you know, Dietzel, Saban,
right.
You know,
Miles.
Billy Cannon.
Right.
You know, there are moments, there are seasons, and that are always identified with individuals. That's his.
Right.
Unfortunately, he let it get away from him in record time. Players leaving early, injuries, players transferring, off the field issues. COVID, which he couldn't control, and it got really sloppy and messy in the last 2 years. And I think the change had to occur, and it did, and it taints his legacy to some degree. But I think the farther we get away from this, the more you're going to look back at Ed Orgeron and you're going to see 2019. You're not going to see 2020 and 2021.
I agree 100%. Look, I think at this point it had to be done. You at LSU, you're not going back-to-back 500 years. You're not going to, even Brian Kelly, who we'll talk about in a few minutes, is not going to be able to go back-to-back 500 years, especially coming off that particular type of a season. I think that he walks away with a lot of money, $17 million. He doesn't have to coach or do anything again for the rest of his life. He doesn't want to. But I think he's going to be a guy that is going to be revered when he walks back on campus. I think when he walks into the stadium, the crowd is going to go wild on him. There's not going to be, again, the look back at the last 2 years. They're going to remember 2019, and he's going to be revered for that. And again, in a small way, I mean, that's a great thing for a guy that, again, wanted his dream job, accomplished the highest of highs, but unfortunately could not sustain it.
Yeah, and I agree. I think he will always be thought of very fondly, and it would not surprise me if at some point down the road, year or 2 or 3, he may not, I don't know if he wants to do TV.
Right.
I think he wants to coach or be around football. It would not surprise me if somewhere down the road there weren't a John Robinson type role for Ed Orgeron within the LSU football program. I think he still has enough coaching in him to go work somewhere else in a bigger capacity. But at some point, I'm not sure his days at LSU are done.
Right.
And I agree with you. I think he will always be welcomed back because he's from LaRose. He grew up an LSU guy. He would go into recruits' homes and talk Cajun French with the grandparents. He could cook a pot of gumbo if they wanted him to. Brian Kelly is none of that.
No.
Orgeron is unique. And I think, like Charlie McClendon, in a lot of ways, the appreciation for him will grow as time passes, even though McClendon had a much longer tenure.
I agree, and I think that's a great comparison when you talk about McClendon. Again, how people felt on the way out, and again how they felt years later about his tenure at LSU. They turned the page now. The last 2 coaches, they had to go to the last 3 coaches now, had to go to the third choice. The third choice after Saban left was Miles. The third choice after Miles was fired was Orgeron. They go to the third choice this time, okay? And the third choice is Brian Kelly. of Notre Dame. First of all, you don't leave Notre Dame, okay? I mean, you get that
Not in the last 114 years.
You don't leave Notre Dame, so that's the first thing. But then also, you don't turn down $9.5 million a year with all the perks, which is another part of it. I said they need to get the next Nick Saban. I think this is about as close to Nick Saban as you can get when you look at Brian Kelly, who has skins on the wall, and is busy. He reminds me a lot of Saban coming in, the business-like approach to the organization.
Yeah, I agree. And he even used the term yesterday in the presser, saying that he's been described in a lot of different ways, one of which is a CEO.
Right.
Which is kind of the Saban thing. He's like he's the head of the board of directors, even though he can coach as well. And I think there are a lot of similarities between the two. But here's the funny thing about coaching searches, especially with the way that social media is nowadays. If they had come out in late October, a week or two after the buyout, and said, okay, we have a deal. Brian Kelly's coming here at the end of the season to replace Ed Orgeron. Everybody would have gone, holy cow, they got the Notre Dame coach to leave to come here. That's amazing. And he's a good coach. He's won 284 games. But no, on social media, the shiny new object is Lincoln Riley.
Right.
Everybody talks about Lincoln Riley. And coaches' reputations get enhanced or get worse based on the chatter on the internet. So now Lincoln Riley is a much better coach than you thought of 2 months ago because he was linked to LSU for as long as he was, and he wound up at USC. Brian Kelly's name was under the radar, partly because I think Scott Woodward wanted it that way.
Yes, that was his backup.
And so at the end, it's kind of like, Brian Kelly, I haven't heard his name. Why would they want him? I thought we were getting Lincoln Riley. There's no reason in the world for anybody to think at this point in time Lincoln Riley is a better coach than Brian Kelly. No. It's ridiculous. It's a great hire.
Right.
And I don't care where he was on the original list. I don't care what was said on social media. I care about what he has done building 4 programs, including one of the marquee programs in the history of college football, taking Notre Dame to the college football playoff as frequently as he has, having as many 10-win seasons, winning more games at Notre Dame than Newt Rockne or Frank Leahy or Ara Parseghian or Lou Holtz. So I can't find any fault with this hire.
No. Beat both Les Miles and Ed Orgeron in bowl games, right?
Correct.
Okay. When in both cases LSU was the favorite team. And the other part of it is the stabilizing force. You feel now, again, with things that have been so helter-skelter over the last couple seasons, that he brings in a stabilizing force for this team. Now, people can criticize the situation of leaving Notre Dame with an opportunity to go to the college football playoffs, and I think it's a legitimate criticism, but it is the way it is now. I mean, again, it is. Again, there is no allegiance to a school, to a team, to a player. It just is the way it is. And if anything, they really have to start taking a hard look now at again this early signing period, which is one of the reasons why this was moved up in terms of the timeline. Because again, LSU doesn't want to lose their recruits, and it coincides with anyone that's going into a playoff. So again, that has to be looked at by the NCAA down the line here if they want to stop these coaches from jumping ship before the seasons are over with.
Yeah, that definitely complicates things. But there's no good way for a coach to leave a program. I can't think of a single instance of a coach leaving one college football program to go to another college football program where the fans of the program he's leaving said, oh, he did it the right way. That was a nice way for him to turn his back on us. It doesn't happen. Now, could Kelly have done things differently? I don't know. It happened so fast.
Right.
You know, he's trying to get the job at LSU. He doesn't know if he's going to get it. He can't go tell the players, oh, I'm going to LSU until he knows he has the LSU job. Then when it happens so fast. Word leaks so fast. They didn't have time to convene a team meeting and tell them. So I don't fault him because I don't know what else he could have done to make it more palatable for the people in South Bend.
Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens here now. It looks like, again, the staff at Notre Dame is staying, that Marcus Freeman is going to be the new head coach there. He was pardon me, non-committal on retaining LSU coaches. I get the feeling Brad Davis, the offensive line coach, is going to be in the mix here. Durante Jones was seen out, again, recruiting yesterday, as was Corey Raymond and Kevin Falk. Those are the 4 coaches that I think if there's going to be a retention, that would probably be those 4. But at the same time, you cannot handcuff this coach and not bring in his own staff. But on the flip side, he is a national recruiter. These guys have recruited Louisiana. They've got the inroads into the class now. It would be hard to walk away from those guys, especially Corey Raymond, Davis, and maybe Kevin Falk.
Yeah, it's a really tough balancing act he has, and I think he'll wind up with a very good staff. But he has to balance, like you said, national recruiting. There are going to be people from his Notre Dame staff, perhaps, or others he knows around college football that he wants to add. But he has to have guys who can save this recruiting class, who know how to recruit Louisiana, who know the SEC, and that's where the LSU guys come in handy. And in his point yesterday, he spoke highly of both Raymond and Falk, and just said, I haven't had a chance to sit with them one-on-one yet, so I can't commit to anything. So I think there's a good chance they come back. Davis would make sense, and I really think Baker, the linebacker coach, has done a great job.
He really has.
Every linebacker has gotten better. That's the most improved unit on the whole team. He needs to take
he's a former defensive coordinator as well.
Yeah, he needs to take a long, hard look at him. Now, Durante Jones, I think you have to consider how much improvement the defense has shown over the last month and say there might be a spot for this guy, maybe still as DC. But the first half of the season was not good for him, but the defense was much better, and so I think Kelly would have to take that into account. So that's going to be extremely important. He's got to put together a staff very fast. He's got a lot of considerations to make, tough decisions, but he's going to be weighing, I think, a lot of good candidates. He'll wind up with a good staff.
Early signing period is December the 18th, so again, you don't have a lot of time to put the staff together and to really stabilize this situation. And of course, the transfer portal. I've mentioned transfer portal goes both ways. I think it's a little bit different with Notre Dame, though. They have a different type of athlete there. Again, from an academic standpoint, whereas maybe if you would have had a Lincoln Riley, you may have seen an exodus of Oklahoma players to LSU. I don't think you're going to see a mass exodus of Notre Dame players to LSU.
No, I don't think you will, and it's partly because it's a different type of player in general. The other part is we've seen in the CFP that those Notre Dame players don't always match up with SEC players.
That's a great point.
So, I think the main thing, and he talked about it yesterday, is those who have said, I'm going to LSU and have not backed out, those are the guys you go to first and make sure you lock them up. And any high school kid wants to go to a program where he can play right away or shortly thereafter and maximize his chances of getting to the NFL, period. Kelly has done that at Notre Dame. LSU has done that. Without Kelly, there's no reason for these kids to think it won't happen with Kelly at LSU.
From a recruiting standpoint, he's a national recruiter. Okay, so now he's got ties to high school coaches all over the nation. But the big thing is his ability to be able to, again, recruit offense and defensive linemen, which has been an issue for LSU in terms of getting the big offensive linemen. Again, he has those ties into the Midwest where a lot of those guys come from. Again, you have the athletes that are homegrown here in Louisiana. From that standpoint, it looks like it could be a perfect fit.
Yeah, that's one of the most important things he has to do in building this team. And one of the things, getting back to Orgeron and why the time was now, is the attrition in this program is unbelievable. They're it's like they're 2 recruiting classes behind in the depth in the program. So he's got to rebuild the depth in the program, most especially the 2 lines. And offensive line, defensive line were always strengths of Notre Dame while he was there, and I think at Cincinnati also. And so that he knows that's where he wants to build this program.
He said that yesterday, right?
Yeah. He was asked specifically about the offensive line, and he talked about how important both are. And the best LSU teams like most teams that are really good, have been built around the offensive and defensive lines.
No doubt.
And he's a guy who believes that, understands that, has done it, and I'm sure will be committed to doing that again.
Contract is for 9 years, actually about 10 years, $95 million. But it really, with the incentives, is about $105 million. He was making somewhere between $2 and $5 million at Notre Dame. And again, they don't have to disclose it because they're a private university. It's been stated that, again, he is the highest paid coach in public universities in the nation. Look, somebody walks up to you in a 45-minute interview and doubles your salary and it gives you a chance to go in the SEC. I don't care where you're at. It's hard to walk away.
Yeah, I don't see how he could have said no. And he was sort of asked about this yesterday and dismissed it, but
right.
I'm not sure he was being totally honest, and I don't blame him. But it's easier to get into the CFP at Notre Dame than LSU. It's easier to win the championship once you're in the CFP at LSU than at Notre Dame.
Because of the athletes.
Because of the athletes, because of the competition in the SEC. You don't have to be, really, you don't have to be one of the 4 best teams in the country at Notre Dame to be one of the 4 in the playoff because of your reputation. At LSU, you may have the 2 best teams in the country in your division in any given year. So it's hard to get there, but boy, once you get there, that means you have the players to win it. He didn't have that at Notre Dame.
I think it's a great hire.
I do too.
I think it's a great hire. All right, Tulane 2-10, 1-7 in the American, 33-28 losers to Memphis. It's rebuilding time for Willie Fritz. Look, I don't think Willie Fritz is on a hot seat. I don't think anybody's pushing Willie Fritz out the door. But again, this was a hiccup, no doubt about it. He has to be able to quickly revitalize this program.
Yeah, he does, and I think there are a couple of things they can hang their hat on. The 2-10 season was terrible, huge disappointment. Schedule and COVID and Ida, and there were a lot of things that contributed to that.
The schedule basically the most. I mean, again, when you're playing 4 top 25 teams, 2 of those are ranked 2 in the second ranked teams in the country. That's hard to overcome for Tulane. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is, and so they had some tough losses. Got beat up a little bit early in the year. The UAB game really hurt them, letting that one get away early. But I think the 2 things they can hang on to is Michael Pratt is still a very good quarterback. He had a rough season. He played hurt almost the entire year.
No doubt.
He's still a good quarterback with a long-term future. And the defense played a lot better in the last month of the season, kind of like LSU. They simplified things, took a different approach. The players thrived in that, and they got a lot better. And that was really the key to that 3-year bowl run was their defense. So maybe they figured out how to make the defense work. They have to recruit a lot more talent to make it work better. But they have the quarterback, and they have some hope on defense. But he's got to hit a home run with his recruiting.
Let me say this. Tajay Spears says he's coming back. That's huge.
That is.
Okay, because, again, he's the best playmaker on that team. You mentioned Michael Pratt. He's only going to get better by, again, continuing to have the experience. But Willie Fritz got to hit the recruiting trail to really kind of get this team back. Look, they're not going to have the schedule they had this past year. Okay, so I mean that schedule is an anomaly. Whoever did that schedule had no idea these teams were going to be that good. We'll see how it plays out, but it is definitely a step back for Tulane. There's no doubt. Southeastern takes on James Madison in the second round of the playoffs. They're in the Sweet 16. Kelly has been a phenom for that team at quarterback. Again, we wish them the best, but you and I were talking before the show, and you mentioned something about Miles Brennan, which I thought was really an interesting point. I'd like you to really bring that up now on the program.
Yeah, actually, a colleague of mine said this first. I don't know if he wants to be identified, so I won't. But it made sense to me at the time, and I know Miles Brennan went through all kinds of bad luck and bad timing at LSU, and so he's eager to go to a big-time program and prove that he can play against the best and show the NFL that he's a viable prospect. I understand that. Maybe he gets the right opportunity there. But, boy, there are worse places for him to go than Hammond, Louisiana.
Amen.
Frank Selfo will make him a better quarterback.
He is a quarterback
He will
guru.
put up eye-popping numbers in that offense, and that will get him to the combine. Excuse me, and that's all that matters.
That really is all that matters. But again, we want to congratulate Southeastern as they move on into the Sweet 16. They got a darn good program. And listen to the Selfo. You got to really, again, respect. Again, he said the first 2 years he went into when he went to the playoffs and they moved through, he realized he did not have he had the athletes, but he didn't have the size. They went out and recruited that size, and of course now they along with Kelly, who's a heck of a quarterback, they got a chance to be able to advance.
Yeah, they're very impressive in their first playoff game. And getting back to Brennan, think back to Patrick Ramsey at Tulane, and others at Tulane, and Lester Ricard.
Yes.
The job Frank did with his brother Chris as head coach, developing quarterbacks at Tulane. He's doing the same thing. You got the reigning Heisman Trophy winner for FCS in Kelly. At Southeastern, and they're having another great year. Great job by Frank Selfo, who's always been a good coach.
I hope it's going to continue as well. Got just a couple minutes left. I want to hit on the Pels. 6-18. They got blown out last night by Dallas in the Smoothie King Center. They played Dallas on Friday night. All this Dallas. Dallas last night, Dallas tonight, Dallas tomorrow night. Come on. But they've won 3 of their last 5. Here's the good news. As of today, this show going live, Zion has been cleared for full basketball activities. He had his first practice as a Pelican this year. Look, here's what I say about this. He doesn't have to be able to debut at home. Debut the kid as soon as you get him on the court. If that's tomorrow at Dallas, so be it.
Well, first of all, Will's not going to come out in a Maverick shirt, is he?
I hope not.
Okay.
But you never know.
Yeah.
He's from Shreveport, so I don't know where he leans.
Yeah, okay, well, we had enough with the Cowboys.
Amen to that.
But as far as Zion, I think that has to be the medical staff's call. As soon as the medical staff says he's ready.
Just got some breaking news. Zion had problems at the practice today. He's had a setback with his foot. He will not be ready. That's the cowboy in my ear.
Okay.
So here we go again.
Well, it's unfortunate. It's sad for Zion, and it's unfortunate for the Pelicans. We'll find out more about how severe it is in the coming days.
Yep.
But first day back to have a setback is certainly not encouraging.
It's just frustrating. They have been playing much better basketball. You really like I don't know where they'd be without Valanciunas right now. He's played incredible. He really has. He's leading the league in double doubles. He's rebounding. He's scoring. The other guy is the rookie Herb Jones, who's been irreplaceable for this team. But they need Zion, and unfortunately, again, according to Will back in the studio, it doesn't look like he's going to be back anytime soon.
Yeah, and two quick points. You mentioned Herbert Jones.
Right.
And Josh Hart missed last night's game.
Yes.
But the lineup with Herb Jones and Josh Hart in there together is something Willie Green needs to look at going forward, because those two guys do the dirty work so well. They're selfless. That's important. And the other thing that I think gets overlooked a little bit is when they don't have Graham. When he was hurt for those few games, they really struggle because nobody can run the offense. And Devontae Graham has played well since he's come back, and he may be a more important person than is generally recognized.
Well, I hate to leave it on a bad note with Zion Williamson, but we're getting used to it. Let me just say that.
Yeah, it's a shame.
We're getting used to it. It's been an injured year for the home teams, no doubt. Les, thanks so much for joining us. If we don't have you back, Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Merry Christmas to you. Nice tie.
There you go. I'm sporting. I hope I got a few more before we get out of here of December. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, plenty of ways to catch our program now. 6 p.m. tonight on WLAE-TV, 10 p.m. tonight on The Deuce, WLAE-TV 2. Tomorrow night, Friday night on Pelican Sports Television, 10 o'clock on WLAE, 2 a.m. on The Deuce every Saturday morning, every Saturday afternoon, 5 p.m. on Pelican Sports Television. Always on the WLAE-TV YouTube page, always at ericasher.com, always on our social media platforms, at Eric_Asher on Twitter, Eric Asher on Facebook, Inside New Orleans Show on Instagram. Also, again, you catch me on the radio, 106.1 FM, Nash Icon, 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, again, our podcast is everywhere. Anchor is our home base. We're on all podcasting platforms. iHeartRadio app, TuneIn Radio app. Great way to take the show with you anywhere. Again, special thanks to our underwriters who make our show possible. We very much appreciate each and every one of them. Also, special thanks to Les East for joining us on the program, and the WLE production staff who do an incredible job producing our program. Special thanks to Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Will Ingram, Alex Chacon, and even though he's a Dallas Cowboy fan, the best director on the planet, William Hill. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Les East, I'm Eric Asher. Have a wonderful afternoon and the rest of the week. We'll see you right back here next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.